As a kid, my family and I lived in a small town. The type of place where everyone knew everyone, and where the most excitement we'd get was the annual county fair. But there was one peculiar feature of our town that everyone knew about, but nobody spoke of. Radio station 104.3. Every day at precisely 3:33 a.m., the radio station would broadcast a series of numbers, a woman's voice, cold and monotone. 17, 22, 9, 14. The series of numbers varied daily, and no one knew their purpose. Some said it was a Cold War relic. Others thought it was just a prank. But after the numbers, the station would play the most beautiful music. Melodies that would make you feel a deep longing for something you couldn't quite name. Then, at 4 a.m. sharp, the music would stop, and the station would return to its regular programming. That was until one particular morning. I was 15 then, and having been plagued by insomnia, I took to listening to these broadcasts to lull myself to sleep. That morning, the number sequence was eerily short. 4, 13. Suddenly, the woman's voice cracked. She whispered, "Help me," before letting out a gut-wrenching scream. Then, a deep, rumbling voice echoed, "They are watching. Join us or suffer." The broadcast abruptly cut to static. That morning, the entire town was buzzing. Everyone had heard it. The police were swarmed with calls and decided to investigate. The problem was, no one knew where the station's actual broadcasting site was located. I teamed up with my friend Sam, a tech whiz, to trace the source. What we discovered chilled us to the bone. The signal came from underneath the town's abandoned church. Equipped with torchlights, we descended into the basement of the church, only to discover a hidden door leading further underground. We walked for what felt like hours in a dimly lit tunnel adorned with archaic symbols. Then, we reached a cavernous room filled with old broadcasting equipment. But most disturbingly, at the center of the room was a glass tank filled with a murky liquid. Floating inside was the woman from the broadcasts, her eyes lifeless. On the floor near the tank, we found an old journal. As we flipped through, the horrifying story of Station 104.3 came to light. The woman was a former resident of our town. The deep voice belonged to an ancient cult that believed broadcasting these numbers and songs would appease otherworldly entities that lived underground. The numbers weren't random. They represented sacrifices, dates when someone in the town would mysteriously disappear. The beautiful melodies, they were sung by the woman, a siren song to lure these entities into a deep sleep. The journal's last entry read, "She's weakening. We need a replacement." Suddenly, we heard the rumbling voice. "You shouldn't be here." Whispers filled the air, growing louder and more insistent. We sprinted back towards the tunnel entrance, the whispers growing more deafening. Just as we saw the exit, hands reached out from the walls, pulling and tugging at us. Sam, always thinking on his feet, switched on his boombox to the frequency 104.3. The beautiful music began to play, causing the hands to retreat and the voices to hush. We emerged from the church, gasping for air. The police sealed off the church. As for Station 104.3, it stopped broadcasting. But every so often, late at night, I'd catch snippets of a familiar, haunting melody on the radio. I moved away for college, and life went on. But every year, on the anniversary of that fateful night, my radio, no matter where it's tuned, will switch to 104.3. A woman's voice, sounding eerily like mine, will whisper, "They are still here. They are still watching. In Evergreen, our library stood tall, ancient, and ever-brooding. It was said to be as old as the town itself. Its stone walls were covered in creeping ivy, and large Gothic windows adorned its facade. The townsfolk respected the library for its age, but there was also an unspoken fear of it. Rumors were that the library had a section that was forbidden. Nobody knew its contents, but it was said that those who ventured there never returned quite the same. My best friend, Lydia, worked at the library. One evening, she texted me excitedly about discovering a hidden section of the library while organizing books. It was only a single, nondescript door with an ornate brass handle, but it was locked. The next day, she didn't show up at school. Calls to her went unanswered. After 2 days with no word from Lydia, I decided to investigate. Armed with a flashlight, I sneaked into the library after hours. The only sound was the faint whispering of the wind. Or so I thought. As I approached the hidden door, I realized the whispering wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from behind the door. With a mixture of fear and determination, I picked the lock and slowly pushed the door open. Beyond it was a spiral staircase descending into darkness. The walls of the staircase were lined with shelves filled with books that seemed impossibly old. But as I descended, I realized the whispers grew louder, morphing into voices. They seemed to emanate from the books themselves. At the base of the stairs was a vast chamber illuminated by ethereal blue light. In the center was a pedestal with a single ancient book. Its pages turned on their own, and I realized this book was the source of the voices. I approached cautiously, and as I did, a voice rose above the others. Lydia's. "Read it," she urged. "Read and understand." Compelled by her voice, I began to read. The book contained the stories of souls trapped within its pages, bound forever to the library. They were the whispers, the voices of generations, including some tales that were eerily recent. The last story was Lydia's. She wrote of discovering the chamber and of being drawn to the book. She had hoped to free the souls, but instead became one with them. Suddenly, a cold wind blew through the chamber. The pages of the book began to flip rapidly, and an unseen force pulled me toward it. Panicking, I remembered a chant Lydia once mentioned, said to ward off evil spirits. Reciting it, I felt the grip on me weaken. Grabbing the book, I ran up the stairs and out the library, sealing the hidden door behind me. I hid the book in a place where nobody would find it. The library went silent, the whispers gone. Lydia was never found. But on some nights, when everything is still, I'd swear I hear her voice among the wind, a soft whisper, reading a story from a time long gone.